Dying without a will can cause all sorts of problems. When Trevor dies, he will leave what we call an estate, which is essentially the sum of everything he owns. Cash, assets like a house and car, life insurance, funeral policies, investments, and so on. A will explains who must get what from Trevor's estate. No matter how little or how much you think you own, you must have a will in place. Why? Well, let's look at what happens if Trevor dies without a will. This is called dying intestate. The law decides who will benefit from his estate without taking his wishes into account. The law distributes your estate according to family bloodlines. This means they will find out if Trevor has a spouse, children, grandchildren, parents, brothers, sisters, and grandparents, and decide who should inherit. What remains of the estate after tax, fees and debt have been paid will be divided according to a legal formula, and none of Trevor's family can change that. The courts will also decide who becomes the guardian to Trevor's minor children if both parents are dead. This is why it's so important to have a will. If your wishes aren't in writing, they can't be followed. So now, let's look at how Trevor should put together his will. The first step is for Trevor to list what he owns, assets, and what he owes, liabilities, including tax, fees, and debt. Did you know that when you die, your estate has to pay taxes and a fee to wind up your estate? Trevor has to make sure there's enough money in his estate to pay for these costs, which might include estate duty, capital gains tax, and any unpaid income tax when he dies. So there's a lot to pay before the remainder or residue of the estate can be calculated and paid to his beneficiaries. If there isn't enough cash or life cover, then his family may have to sell what Trevor or they own to pay off the debts in the estate. Debt is the last thing you want to leave behind when you die. That's why Trevor wants to buy extra life cover to make sure his estate has enough money to pay for all the fees, taxes, and any debt. The next thing Trevor needs to do is decide who the executor, the person Trevor wants to finalize his estate, should be. It's best to choose someone who specializes in wills and estate planning. Trevor can also appoint a co-executor, usually a close friend or family member. Trevor has to do several things to make sure his will is legal. 1. Trevor must sign it and get 2 witnesses to sign it in each other's presence. 2. He must sign each page. 3. The witnesses must be older than 14. 4. Trevor's spouse or any beneficiary of his estate may not sign as a witness. 5. Executors, trustees, and guardians may also not sign as a witness. Finally, here are Trevor's top 6 tips for wills. Things you must remember when doing your will. 1. Keep it simple. 2. Make sure you know where your will is and give a copy to someone close to you. If you don't want to give them a copy, tell them who the executor is and where to find your will. 3. Review your will regularly. It needs to be updated whenever your personal circumstances change, especially if you divorce. 4. Remember that policies where you have chosen a beneficiary, like some pensions and life cover, fall outside your will. So does your retirement fund. For those benefits, you need to complete a nomination of beneficiaries form with your employer. 5. Consider the tax implications of your will. 6. Appoint guardians or a trust to look after the interests of your minor children. The reality is that we will all die. We just don't know when. Which is why Trevor has a will to make sure his wishes are carried out. Securing your financial well-being requires planning and discipline. It's all about looking after what matters most to you, now and in the future.